John 19:26 and 27. Woman, this is your son. To the disciple, this is your mother. Here, Jesus the Nazarene and Jesus the Christ is on the cross, lifted up. Scripture has various references to this moment, and even in which this historical Jesus body is bound by and paradoxically embracing the cross. It is a moment and an event in Scripture. When I am lifted up, I will draw all people to myself. This is the gist of the collective wisdom of these references. When I am lifted up, I will draw all people to myself. I want to consider three elements in this scriptural Christic declaration. First, when I am lifted up. On Golgotha, Jesus was lifted up in many ways, but I want to focus on one way. He was physically lifted up. Up from, away from, unable to reach out physically and touch, embrace, hand off his beloved disciple and his beloved and loving mother. The vehicle then of his care and concern for and the desire to spiritually and familially pair these two precious individuals could no longer be his hands, his arms, his embrace. It could no longer be through embodied embrace that he would reach and touch them. Instead, he had to reach them through his voice and words, through his own spiritual and relational posture, and I think perhaps most importantly and telling, through his eyes, through Jesus seeing, Jesus looking, and Jesus showing. His final embrace of these two beloved people was armless, bodiless, and yet was so incarnational. So very incarnational, I believe. This reminds me of how bodiless so much and so many of our connections with others during this COVID time has been. It's made me particularly think about the individuals who have died from COVID this past year, of the nurses and doctors who care for them while being careful in and if and how and when they touch them. Made me think also of all the family members, spouses, children, and others who have had to say goodbye without arms, without hands, without fingers, and without embrace, through a glass screen or through a broken up cell phone signal, standing in a hospital parking lot. When I am lifted up, woman, here is your son. Disciple, here is your mother. Second, I will draw all people. Beyond formal family bonds and bounds, Jesus Christ brought people together. Early in his ministry, he asked the question that is telegraphed here and brought home, perhaps both rhetorically and pragmatically. Who is my mother? Who is my brother? In other words, how do we most authentically, with God pulsing through our veins, define and experience and cultivate family? Woman, this is your son. To the disciple, this is your mother. Here Jesus, as his death takes him from filling these vital, precious relational roles himself, here he is the bridge builder, breaking open the threshold space between biological and spiritual kin. Family is infinitely possibility here, as it was throughout all of his life and teaching. All people are or can become family here. Finally, to myself, I will draw all people to myself. Many people have wondered and worried about where God is in the midst of this last year. His family members have lost loved ones to the coronavirus, to racially motivated violence, and specifically racially motivated murder, to anarchistic demonstrations that were not ethically led and therefore gave way to additional and needless loss of life. I've wondered the same in my own mind and heart. Where is God in the midst of all of this? And yet, in and through the responses of all of this loss of life, the wailing parents, the angry and despondent healthcare workers, the burnout parents and kids and grandparents sharing one common residence and related others, I do wonder in a positive way where and how we've encountered the crucified one, who also through grace will become the resurrected one. Where have we, perhaps without knowing it or realizing it as such, encountered this Christic myself as we've experienced and witnessed the loss of so many individual lives since this last year? Where have we been that mother? Where have we been that disciple? And yet that Christ has been in the midst of us in tremendous loss, calling us together, even invisible. John 19:26 and 27. Woman, this is your son. Disciple, this is your mother. The theme here to consider is relationship. When I am lifted up, I will draw all people to myself. How will you today enter into this story?